Good morning, everyone. Good morning. Thanks, Kathy. We are delighted to have you here today for our first year experience teaching and learning conference. I'd like to start by asking Dr. Nespoli to come and give some welcoming remarks. So, Dr. Nespoli?
Thank you. Hi, Christine. Hi, everyone. So what am I doing here? Well, I'm here as an interested participant. I've got some plans in the coming year. Announced about a month ago I'm going to be transitioning in 2008, stepping down from these responsibilities, but I've always loved teaching. And so I'm going to be doing some teaching in graduate programs, but I'm in Mercer County, and I'm going to be teaching the Student Success course at Mercer County Community College. So I thought, what better way to spend at least an hour here this morning before I've got to run to the State House to listen in. You know, one of the things that we do at the Council of County Colleges is work in the State House, and it's important work, to say the obvious. Got some important work going on right now, welcoming a new governor in a couple of weeks. You know, you've probably, throughout his campaign and the lieutenant governor's campaign as well, Democrat, Republican. We work as we do with both sides of the aisle, but the election results are in. We've got a governor-elect, soon-to-be governor. He spoke prominently about community colleges during the campaign, right? You noticed all of that? Didn't happen by accident. We worked long and hard with him and his staff talking about free community college. I don't like that label. Nothing's free in life, but he's very knowledgeable about community colleges, gets community colleges in all of the most important ways. He and his wife with young children then lived in Germany. They get the community college role in apprenticeships, technical training, pathway to the baccalaureate degree, the whole community college mission. But in the State House, even on good days, sometimes I would have to pause on the way out of the building and on the way home to think, you know, what business am I in? Oh yeah, education, students, faculty, and that's why what you do is so important and why this event today is so important. I want to get out of your way just by bragging a bit on Dr. Harrington and this Center for Student Success. It's one of our proudest accomplishments. This Council for County Colleges represents the presidents, the trustees. We do advocacy work. We do a lot of different things. But we're so proud that New Jersey, time flies, I guess about 5 years ago, was one of the first states among the 50 to get funding from the Kresge Foundation and later Gates to create a Center for Student Success. And presidents were and are all in on it. We've got offices here at Middlesex, offices in Trenton. And since that time, through a lot of active and important work, maybe stealing your thunder a little bit, but I like to present this metric, if you will, to policymakers in the State House. We've increased the number of New Jersey community college graduates since day one of this center to now 5 years later by approaching 50%, I think. And that, again, that too didn't happen by accident. And that's against the backdrop of declining enrollment. So that's especially impressive. And most recently, again, one of the few states to gain further support through this center and through some of the national funders, and some, we're very grateful for this, some local funders here in New Jersey. PSE&G Foundation, the Prudential Foundation, both Newark-based, recently received ample funding to roll out. Have you talked with this group about it, Christine? I won't take much longer here because I know we want to get to Dan. But you're going to be rolling out these kinds of events and activities, so important and so good, where we enlist or draft soldiers like you, I don't know which it is, maybe a little bit of both, to take this good work back to your campuses, these state-level events. But now through this additional funding, we've got monies to hire consultants. Christine will be hiring consultants and delivering them, I think in the first round, up to about a dozen of our colleges, delivering these national and state experts to you at the campus level to drill down more on these kinds of activities. So thanks for all that you do. The very last thing I'll say, I promise, there's a guy, Byron McClenny, who's been a national guru. He was president at the Denver Community College and still very active. He and his wife, Kay McClenny. I heard him give a presentation years ago now, and somebody asked him, well, what would be in your top three, Byron, top three things that are making a difference on student success? And this work, first year experience course, student success course, whatever the label, whatever the brand, was in his top 3. Now, I thought that, I've remembered that to this day. So I'm eager to become one of you in a couple of months to be teaching this course, and I'm all in on that and all ears today. And congrats to Christine for all that she does. She's just such a talent. We're so grateful to have her on our team. Thanks for coming today.
Thank you so much for that warm welcome. And I want to just provide you with a little bit of context for what we're doing at the Center for Student Success regarding the first year experience course in particular. And then I'll introduce our keynote speaker for today. So many of you know that what we're doing at the center is framing all of our work based on guided pathways. So when you think about guided pathways, what does that mean? Well, pathways means that we're creating clear paths for our students so they know what it is they need to do to get from point A to point B, which hopefully is the graduation finish line, and making sure that's clearly articulated. In addition, we want to make sure that along that path they're learning a tremendous amount of skills, knowledge, and things that they'll be able to take with them into their careers. So what happens along that path is probably the most important part of our mission, which is why we have so many of these teaching and learning focused events. The faculty are really kind of at the heart of this guided pathways movement, because the work that you do with your students every day makes a huge difference and helps them learn the skills and develop the abilities that they need to be successful, not only through their college journey, but also into their world of work beyond college. The guided part has to do with helping students choose a pathway and stay on a pathway. And to me, this is where the first year seminar or student success course really comes into play, because not only are we doing the pathway part, but we're doing the guided part in this course. So this course I see as being kind of a key vehicle to get students on the right path and to help them develop the skill sets that they need to be successful. So out of all of the courses that we teach, I think this is one of the most important ones. So it's great to see such a large audience here. And we have folks from all different kinds of areas. So we certainly have faculty teaching the course. We have course coordinators. We have administrators here, many of whom are from the community college sector. But we also have some of our high school partners here as well. So we want to welcome you. I want to take a moment to thank the Office of the Secretary of Higher Education for giving us a College Readiness Now grant. We're actually in the 4th round of College Readiness Now funding, and part of that grant is really focused on integrating student success into the remedial DevEd approach that we're using with our high school partners. So the entire intent of that grant is to help ensure that students who graduate high school are coming to community college ready to take on the academic challenges and hopefully avoid or at least minimize the need for DevEd or remedial coursework. And we obviously need to do that through the English and math areas, the content area, but we also need to do that by addressing the student success component. So we know that many of you are here for that reason, and we do want to thank the state for the funding, generous funding that they have given us to help support that work across New Jersey. So really excited about that. I also want to do a shout out to Middlesex County College, because not only do they give us the space, they also provide us with video services. So I really want to thank our media services team. They are phenomenal. And I want to remind you all that all of these videos that, from presentations are available to you on our website. So if you haven't yet visited our website, the website is just njstudentsuccess.com. So njstudentsuccess.com. If you go to the website, you'll see the resources page. On that resources page, there are several different areas where you'll find good content, some related to teaching and learning in general, but we also have a student success course page as well. So you want to go to that page and you'll find there the learning outcomes that we developed as a state sector. The experts from across the state came together and identified what we thought were really solid learning outcomes that are aligned to the Guided Pathways framework. Now, your college may or may not have adopted those. That's an independent decision for them, but these are resources that are available. And we've also posted some assignments and sample syllabi there. And we've also posted an infographic that helps you make the case on your campus for the importance of this course, because there's so much data behind this course, nationally, locally, everywhere, and unfortunately it often is the course that people are not valuing as much as they should. So we need to help educate folks about how important this course can be. And that's if it's done really well. So we're hoping that events like this will help you elevate your course. So I encourage you to check out the resources on the website, and I also encourage you to take advantage of the other events that we offer throughout the year. And now it is my pleasure to introduce our keynote speaker. So how many of you have been to an FYE conference? All right, so some of you folks have. So the annual FYE conference is massive. You know, there's thousands of folks who go to this annual conference every year, and it rotates in terms of where it is held across the nation. And what is so magnificent about this is all the experts from across, different states are coming together in different areas, faculty, administrators, student support services. Everyone's really focused on the big FYE, which is really the entire first year experience. A piece of that is the first year seminar. And University of South Carolina, really, they were the ones who kind of began this whole first year experience initiative. So we are very fortunate today to have Dr. Dan Friedman here, who is at the University of South Carolina and who directs the University 101 class there and has been there for about 10 years or so. And that is kind of like, the initial course, that really existed. And the rest of us have learned so much from the University of South Carolina, as well as from all the work that they've done to create, these opportunities such as the annual conferences, the listservs. They really manage quite a lot to help us all benefit from the expertise. So without further ado, I'm going to go ahead and give Dan a warm welcome. Please join me in welcoming Dan.
Great. Thank you, Christine. It's so good to be back in New Jersey. This is the first time I've been in New Jersey that didn't involve a Bruce Springsteen concert. So I appreciate another, and actually, fun fact, you've probably seen that in my bio that I'm a Springsteen fan. And if you're following how hard it is to get tickets for a show on Broadway, I actually got selected this morning for a code, and tickets go on sale 14 minutes ago. So all to tell you is that this is so important to me that I am dismissing the opportunity to get the hardest ticket in America because this is where I want to be today with you. Y'all ready to have some fun? I actually gave the code to my sister, so I'm hoping, I go home and good news is ahead of us. But we're going to do a lot of fun things today. It's going to do a little active learning. Now, normally I teach classes. I've got a class of 19 first-year students. Now I have a class, if you will, of 100. So a lot of these things I've never done in a group this large. So taking a risk, but I'm an optimist. I'm sure it's going to work out. It's going to be great. It's involving a little flexibility on your part. We're all going to have a good time and learn a lot. What I'm hoping to do with this morning session is to give you a lot of tools for your teaching tool belt, a lot of active learning strategies that you can take and apply in your student success course or your first year seminar. You may choose to do it with a different topic, so don't be thinking about the activity in relation to the topic. Be thinking about the activity as an activity in and of itself. The trick is pairing the right content with the right method. And so what we talk about in our campus with our instructors is that every class needs to have lots of active learning strategies, right? You have an hour and 15 minutes with your students, find lots of active ways to engage them. But you can't use the same activity more than twice, right? So we have 28 class periods. If we want to do, we probably need 60 active learning strategies that we're going to use throughout the semester. And so if you end up, now that's a high bar to hit, but we have given you, courtesy of the University of South Carolina, a chapter from our 650-page resource manual on ways to teach a first-year seminar effectively. We're giving you the teaching and learning chapter that's going to have hundreds of ideas for activities. So everything that I'm going to do today is sort of written up for you in that packet. That'll be available for you online. So a couple of things that are underlining assumptions here. First is that learning is not a spectator sport, right? So if your students are passively sitting and receiving information, that's not going to be effective as actively engaging them in the thinking and learning process. The second assumption that we're going to get to, once I figure out how to turn this thing on here, is that learning and fun are not enemies. And sometimes, first-year seminars get this rap as being less than academic because we're doing silly things, right? We're playing games. But I can assure you that not only are learning and fun not enemies, they're actually best friends. And so if you do it right and students are having fun, then they are much more likely to learn. So when I think about what do I want to have my students get out of a class, and I'm thinking about the lesson plan for the day, I think about the student walking out of my class. They're going to get on their phone, they're going to call their mom, they're going to call their best friend or whatever, and they're going to say, hey, what you doing? Oh, I just came out of University 101. Oh yeah, how was it? Right? So now I have this moment where the student is going to talk to their mom about how my class just went. And what I want them to say is, oh my gosh, it was so fun. And I learned this, and I learned that. I want there to be that enthusiasm, and I want them to be able to articulate what they've learned. So a lot of these strategies are going to help us get to that. All right. So what I want to talk about are three, just before we get into the active learning pieces, three things that we know make a first-year seminar work. Why do they work? We've known for 45 years that these courses work. We've known for 45 years that students that take a first-year seminar will return for their second year at significantly higher rates, and that they will graduate from your institution at significantly higher rates. We also know that averages hide a lot of variances, right? So on our campus, the retention differential is 3% higher for students who take our course than students that don't take our course. But 3% is very misleading because the students who are not taking the course on our campus are either going to be engineering students or honors college students. And comparing our students against the honors college is not a fair fight. When you take the honors college students out of the equation, the retention differential jumps to 7.5%. That's a lot of students when you're talking about 6,000 first-year students. Take a look at the lowest academic ability students, the lowest quintile of our students, and now the graduation difference between students who take the course and students that don't is 20 percentage points. That is how we get to exist as a fully resourced academic unit as an elective for 45 years, by showing that this course works, and it works disproportionately for our lower academic ability students. But it works for all students. What makes it work? So we've known, again, 45 years that it works, but it wasn't until about 8 years that we started seeing evidence about why. What is it about the first-year seminar that leads to these retention differentials? So I'm going to skip past these boring methodology slides just to show you the number one predictor of a student's decision to stay in college as a result of the class was sense of belonging. That construct has since changed names. It's now known as social integration, but it's the same thing. So let me show you what that makes up. Three things. So when you think about your class, if you can think about these three things as the primary driver, odds are that your students are going to increase the chances that they stay. One, students can identify people with similar interests. Two, they're accepted by other students at the institution, and they find it easy to make friends. So this is that community that is essential. It provides a sense of affirmation, a sense of validation. If students think that they're the only one experiencing something, they're the only one who thinks that chemistry 111, or whatever your intro to chem class is really hard, or the only one thinking, oh, I thought I was going to be this major, but now I'm not so sure, maybe I'll just drop out. If they're going through this alone, they are much more likely to leave than if they feel a sense of connection with others and others that are helping them go through that journey together. So I want you to think about those three things and what you're going to do in your seminar to make that happen. Now, fortunately, this isn't just something extra you have to do. When you use the appropriate pedagogical strategies, you're using active learning and small group discussion, you're going to achieve that through the content. So this is not just building a class just to build community. Building community is a positive byproduct of teaching it well. Second thing that makes these first-year seminars work. Anybody know what this is? Take a guess. What are we looking at? Yes.
A canary used for coal miners.
Yeah, so how did that work? What was the, what's the principle here of the canary in the coal mine?
The gases would affect the canary before it affects the men working in the mine.
Right. So the miners would take the canary down in this little pretty box, and when the methane levels rose to an unhealthy level, the bird has a smaller respiratory system, right? So it's going to feel the effects first. The bird topples over and dies. I know, it's morbid for a Friday morning. And the miners say to themselves, what? Time to get out, right? Now, we have fancy sensors in the mines. We don't need the canary in there anymore, but the expression, the canary in the coal mine, is very useful for our work as educators. We have a jargon in our field for this. We do, not this, something a little similar to it. What's the jargon that's similar in our field of education for something like this? Yeah. You think about it. We do this. We call it early alert, right? Early alert system. Y'all have early alert systems on your campus? Yeah, it's the coal mine, all right? So what I want you to do at your table, I'm going to give you 30 seconds. I want you to come up with as many indicators. The bird not toppling over. What is the metaphor of that bird toppling over? Signs that your students may be in need of help and things aren't going well and we need to intervene, okay? I'll give you 30 seconds. Go. All right, time's up. That was a very quick 30 seconds. All right, so let me just shout them out as loud as you can and I'll repeat them. What are the things that we can look at that show us your students may be in need of some help? All right, not coming to class. Number one answer. And I get this all the time. So what do you do when your students don't come to class? How many of y'all contact your students? Yeah. You know, I get a lot of things about, is that our place? Well, if we want our students to graduate, you know, I would say a little bit of intervention. I would say this. Treat your students like you treat everybody else in your life, assuming you're a good person. Treat your students like I say, if you're a good parent, you're a good supervisor, you're a good coach or mentor, it's the same skill set. You have an employee that doesn't come to work one day. Do you contact them? Of course you do. Hey, Bob, where are you? I haven't heard from you. I'm assuming something's not well. We need to afford that same respect to our students. So, Johnny, you're not in class, so text them, call them, find out what's going on. Okay, and your students will lie to you too, because one thing we know is that the grade that they earn in their first year seminar is very highly correlated to their overall GPA. It's very rare for a student to fail a student success course and make an A in chemistry, biology, math, whatever. But they will lie to you. They're like, Dr. Dan, I got this under control. I'm just not coming to your class, but I'm going to every other class. It's not true. So what you want to do is make sure that they are having the right motivation and discipline to get through this, or head off other kinds of things that may be, you know, overcommitted in other areas of their life. All right, what other things can we be looking for? Not turning in assignments. Okay, what else? Sleeping in class could be a key. Lack of participation, we'll talk about that later. That could be a lot of other things going on. Distraction. Yeah, they're like reading the newspaper or working on their other homework for another class. Okay. Okay. Oh, they're distracting others in the class. I got you. Okay. Yes. Okay, not logging into their online class, so I guess similar barometer to attendance. What do you mean by indifference? Okay, so sort of apathetic. We'll talk about that today as well. Or sometimes, you know, in a discussion-based class, you get to know your students, right? You see their personalities. So maybe in the beginning of the class, they were all happy and smiling all the time. But then one day, things have changed and shifted, and now they just seem very sad all the time. You can't get them to participate. Something may have happened. So intervening. Hey, Sally, are you okay? Checking in with them as human beings. When I ask my students, what are your favorite things about University 101? We get two kinds of answers. One, this is the only class where I get to talk every day. And two, this is the only class where people are asking me about me. And so coming to college can be a very scary experience for any kind of student. Knowing that someone is there that cares about them is one of those things that's going to help them get through their next 2 or 4 years. So be thinking about your role as a canary in the coal mine metaphor here and looking for those behaviors, but not just noticing them, doing something about it, intervening. Okay, so those two things will predict whether or not they stay and graduate. What's going to predict whether they learn in your class? So we know from our research, so what I'm going to show you are some points from what's called the first year seminar assessment. It's a national instrument sponsored by Sky Factor. We use it at the University of South Carolina, and they give us a nice analysis of all the things that we do in our class, what matters most to overall course effectiveness. And it's these were 7 things, but I grouped them into 5 categories. A variety of teaching methods, meaningful discussion, encouragement for students to speak in class and to work together, productive use of class time, and then meaningful homework and challenging assignments. So those are 7 things there, again, 5 categories. And that's a construct that was created by a colleague of mine, Randy Swing. We're going to talk about the first 4 today, and if we have a little time at the end, I'll sneak in number 5 there with meaningful homework. But I want to spend our time talking about the variety of teaching methods this morning and meaningful discussion in the afternoon. So we're ready to get started with some active learning? Get you ready to go? All right. So I'm going to take you back to what it was like to start college. I have a very simple activity that's very similar to what your students feel like when they start at your institution. I'm going to give you 10 seconds to solve this challenge, and you can use any strategy that you want, except you cannot use your cell phone. That is the only thing that's off limits. And what I want you to do is stand up and face north. Okay, you have 10 seconds to stand up and face north. Ready, set, go. Hold in and lock it. All right, let me ask for some, easy, right? Let me ask for some volunteers how you figured out where you think north is. Yes, ma'am.
South Jersey, and I got off at 10, and then I took the wrong road to get here.
Oh, okay.
So I love maps, and I'm kind of a map nerd, and I calculated that where I parked and the road I came in on, and its correlation to the wrong road I took, that north is that way.
So there's some lessons learned from failure there. That's very important. It's a great teacher. All right, so we have some landmarks and some thinking about the map and orienting ourselves to some information we already know. Other strategies? Yes, sir. So he used the compass and he hoped that the clip art is pointing in the right direction. We'll see about that. Other strategies? Yes, in the back. Tell me about cheating. Yeah. So you're on this campus, you know that this is West Hall and that's East Hall, so you're putting 2 and 2 together. So you call that cheating, but what you're doing is you're applying existing information. You have context that you can now apply to this challenge. Yes. Okay. All right, moment of honesty now. How many of y'all did that? You kind of just followed what everybody else was doing? Yeah? All right. How many of y'all just said, screw it, it's this way? Anybody? Couple of you? Yeah, okay. Thank you for being honest. All right, so I have a compass. Makes this easy. I can't believe that all the times that I do this is actually pointing in the right direction, unless you're, yeah. Oh, yeah, there we go. North is this way. So if you got that right, give yourselves a round of applause. I'm very proud of you. You passed your first test of the day. All right, so what does that have to do with college success? How is that very similar to college success? So let me do this. I'm going to give you, again, 45 seconds to 60 seconds at your table to extend the metaphor as many ways as you can. How is that activity similar to what we ask students to do when they start college? Discuss. Okay, so let me do this. It's often thought by instructors that if you ask a question, you have to get the answer back from the audience, i.e. your class. And if the instructor is somehow not involved, then learning cannot take place, which is a very egotistical way to go about thinking about our importance, because the learning is going to happen mostly on the part of the students, right? So I'm going to cheat a little bit and jump to my interpretation, but the point I want to come back from this afternoon, we talk about fostering meaningful discussion, a little takeaway here that not every discussion has to then get shared with the whole class or with a larger group. The purpose is to get you to think about it rather than receive my information. Now we get to do both. You've thought about what you think. Let me tell you my short little answers here. I think this is exactly what we ask students to do when they come to college, because what I asked you to do was solve a problem. And when you think about it, there are 3 main ways to solve a problem, right? The first is you apply existing information, right? You use your context, your existing knowledge, and you transfer that learning to a new setting. So in this case, it was knowing north, like this is West Hall and East Hall is over there, you can orient yourself. Or I drove in this way, so you know that this must be north. Any kind of information that you can have that you apply to an existing, to a new setting. So you think about your students coming to college. Hey, welcome to the University of South Carolina. Welcome to Middlesex County College. Now go write a 20-page research paper, right? Or go, be successful in this chemistry without any sort of support or acknowledgement of what they are or are not bringing to that equation. All right, second thing that that way to solve a problem is to see what everybody else is doing, right? If you had followed what everybody else is doing, you would have been right in this case. Now, not to say that you want to train your students to just blindly follow what their peers are doing, but I will tell you that the reason you want to keep these first-year seminars small, one, that informal early alert is going to make it more effective for you to identify when those students are having problems. It's going to make it easier to foster that community that we talked about, but it's also going to be easier for students to share what's working for them. This is not a class about information distribution. If it were, you wouldn't need a small class. You wouldn't need a class. You could just post information online and say, hey, here are 10 ways to manage your time effectively, right? But it doesn't work that way. You're not going to make behavior change by telling your students something. How many of y'all have kids, right? You recognize that you can't just tell your daughter what to do. They've got to figure this out on their own. You have to be the coach along in that equation. We're not, absolved of our responsibility there. But what we're doing is we're asking good questions, right? So we want our students to sort of figure these things out on their own. So if I tell my students, oh, well, maybe instead of, piddling around in between your 10 o'clock class and your 2 o'clock class by going back to your room, playing Xbox or taking a nap, maybe the thing to do is to go to the library. You use that time from 10 to 3. You treat it like a 9 to 5 job, whatever, if you have that time. But if I say that, it's like, oh, what do you know, old man? It's been forever since you were in college. But when their peers say it, like, oh, what a great idea, I'm going to do that. I'm like, I just said that, right? But we don't get any credit for it, not that we need it. That's what's happening in their class. You're pulling the knowledge out from the group. I'll give you examples throughout the day. All right, third strategy that we know is probably the best for learning, but not in college. And that's the trial and error, right? So that's the, well, screw it, let's just try it this way, right? So your students probably play video games. And I always like to use a video game metaphor here. So when you're playing a video game, and you're trying to beat the dragon or whatever, and the dragon kills you, what do? You start over. And now how is it different the second time? Yeah, I try a different route. I know that this strategy doesn't work. So let me try this strategy, and you keep messing around until it does. They're going to remember all the strategies that didn't work, and then they're going to remember the one that did, and they're going to tell all their friends, hey, you want to beat the dragon? This is how you do it, right? That works in college. I learned my first semester that, oh, I probably need to go to class, right? And then I learned, oh gosh, while I'm here, I better pay attention and take notes. And then I probably need to read and take notes from my reading, and maybe I'll type those up and merge them together. I learned a lot of things along the way. But the result of that learning was a 2.0 GPA my first semester in college. Because unlike the video game, we don't give our students a reset button. Right? There's no do-over. So you failed their first 5 classes, that has lasting consequences. So we have to think about giving our students the tools and resources to be successful, like this compass. I can find my compass. Here it is. Nope, that's not it. There it is on the board. We'll just use that one, right? There it is. So we could say, hey, welcome to the University of whatever. Welcome to Middlesex County College. Now go be successful. And in the absence of any sort of concrete tool strategies, they're going to rely on those same 3 strategies that we just identified. Every time I've done this activity, hundreds of times, it's the same 3 strategies. So what we want to make sure we're doing is thinking about our courses like this compass and helping to point our students in the right direction. All right? So any other takeaways that you had, analogies that weren't in my 3 here of how this is like starting college that you think, got to share this one? Yes. I got to get you the microphone so you can be heard.
So when we discussed your question, I looked at this metaphor in terms of the type of students we deal with, that they come with different skill sets, different perspectives, and will arrive at or attempt to arrive at a particular solution to a question or answer in their own context. So, and some may just, follow what everybody else is doing. So typically in the learning process, if we're not sure, we do what the majority is doing. Some may not take the risk, even though they think they know the answer because everybody else is doing it. So I didn't think of it from the perspective of how we lead our students. But that was my answer.
Well, thank you for sharing. So this kind of active learning strategy is just a demonstration, right? And then you get your students to think about analogies. And analogies are really important for learning. That's why we use the Miller Analogies Test as a measure to get into graduate school. It is a measure of higher order cognitive ability. So the earlier you can get your students practicing with analogies, the better off you're going to be. All right, we're going to do an activity now called 60-60-30-30. This is something I stole from my friend Brad Garner at Indiana Wesleyan, who's part of their first year experience network as well. I love this activity. The way it's going to work is you need to find a partner. So identify a partner. It has to be pairs. So you may have to work at another table. You may have to scoot your chair behind you to pair up with somebody. So I need you, first thing I do, identify a partner. Step one, go. All right. You found a partner. Excellent. All right, step two. You need to decide who is going to be person number one. The way you're going to do it, you're going to ask them their birthday, not the year. All right, so closest to January, you are person number one. Ready? Go ahead. All right, people number one, raise your hand so you know who you are. Excellent. Okay, hey, the way this is going to work is I'm going to show you a question. Person number one is going to speak for 60 seconds. 60 seconds uninterrupted. So the person number two, your job now is just to listen. You are there to be a sounding board. No comments. You can give them some nonverbals if it makes you feel better. I know it does. But just to listen. I'm going to ring a bell. And then when I ring the bell, person two will answer the same question for 60 seconds. Okay? Here we go. What is the purpose of your student success course or first year seminar? 60 seconds, go. Okay, 60 seconds. All right. Person number two, you speak. Person number one listens. Same question. Go. All right. There we go. I got that to work. All right. So we're now back to person number one. You're going to speak first, but this time 30 seconds is all you're going to get. And you're going to answer a follow-up question, which is 2 years after your students take your class, what do you want students to say about that class? Okay, 30 seconds, go. Okay, person number two, you have 30 seconds, go. All right, there you go. So, 60-60, 30-30. One quick aside, this second question I absolutely love. This comes from a book by the Heath brothers, and I love their work. And it was based on a course redesign process that the University of Virginia uses. But that one question, 2 years from now, what do you want students to say about your class, will be really helpful in thinking through how to do your class. Then after they draft, the faculty come up with a clear answer to this, they're asked then to look at their syllabi and see to what extent are those two things matched up. And oftentimes they are not. And that is a big, big wake-up call. So, and usually focus more on content than the process, which is what they want them to know more about. So thoughts about 60-60, 30-30. What does this do? Yes, sir. Yeah, so it's opening up dialogue. Excellent. What else is it doing? Yes.
You have 60 seconds, so you really get to the core of what you want to say.
Right. So you have to, it focus your, I love this activity as a way of starting a class, right? Because I always assume, well, my students have no life other than what just, they're in my room right now, and this is the only reality that we know, is here in University 101, right? And how naive is that, right? Because they're coming from, they're coming from their job. They're just waking up. They're coming from a fight with their boyfriend. whatever the case may be, they're coming in with history and baggage, right? And so this helps reframe their attention to be thinking about the topic at hand. Yes?
I think one of the things is that a lot of times in the classroom, we speak to the student and not speak with the student. When you're doing this 60-60-30-30, you're actually talking and then you're allowing them to talk back to you uninterrupted. You're actively listening to what they are saying, and they have to actually listen to what you're saying. So now you're having a real conversation.
So oftentimes, let's do the math. How long does 60-60-30-30 take? So technically you need the 3 minutes right there, maybe another 2 minutes to set it up, right? So in 5 minutes, everybody in your class gets to talk, right? You've just achieved rule number 1 in our class. Every student talks every day. Boom, that activity just did that. That doesn't mean that when that student speaks, everybody in the class has to hear it. So this is an activity that honors verbal processing, right? Because oftentimes instructors are like, oh, that's a great activity for like active listening. And yeah, it is, but that's a side benefit to the verbal processing, right? So if you have classes where, this is great for activities where you can't get a class to stop talking or you can't get a class to start talking. This works very, very well. But the opposite of this kind of activity, because this really honors extroverts who want to, like for me, I can't think of something until I just get it out, right? I have to talk about it. But for an introvert, they might want to think about it before they have to share it. So this activity may be a little bit more difficult for them because they want time to prepare their response before they have to just blah, right? So what would be the opposite of this? Maybe a 1-minute paper, right? So for 1 minute, I want you to just write down your thoughts to this prompt. I could have done it that way. Or I could do both. You could do what's called a think, pair, share, right? Give you 60 seconds to think about it, then turn with your neighbor and share it, and then share it back out. So think, pair, share, 60-second paper, and 60-60-30-30, all great ways to process and reflect. So three little activities there. All right, for my next activity, and I came all the way to New Jersey, the great state of New Jersey, to play this activity with you. So I need 5 enthusiastic volunteers who may or may not want to win fabulous prizes. All right, so I need 5. I got 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. Give them a round of applause. If y'all would just form a little huddle over here and come up with a team name right over here, right over here. All right, now, I got to speak to everybody else. Now, it looked like there were a lot of other people who may have wanted to volunteer, which is great. Maybe you're one of the people who didn't put your hands up and want you to reflect for a minute. Why not? Is there fear there? You're like, what's going to happen? I'm volunteering for something, I don't know what it is. Sometimes you got to take a leap of faith. Sometimes you just got to say, yeah, I'll try it. And you never know where that's going to lead, because I was never a joiner throughout life, still not really. But sometimes like, yeah, let's do that, see where it leads. And the greatest thing about America is we get second chances. I need 5 more volunteers who want to play against this team here. I got 1. You want to do this. 2, 3, 4, and I need a 5th. You're there. 5. All right, give me a round of applause. If y'all would huddle up over here, come up with a team name. All right, here we go. So now what we know we're going to do, we're going to play America's favorite game show, The Family Feud. There we go. Got team names? All right. Everybody know how to play the feud? Of course you do. All right. So here, now listen, non-volunteers over here. You all have the single most important job on The Family Feud, right? Why does The Family Feud work? It's not the great host. It's not Steve Harvey. It's that audience, right? What does the audience do when somebody on The Family Feud gives an answer? Good answer, good answer. And what do you do when they say something ridiculous? Oh, right? There's a big groan, right? So we're going to have to feel it, right? So we have our teams over here. This is team. What's your team name? E Street Band. Oh, they're the E Street Band. Give it up for the E Street Band. Well played. All right, and your name?
Matt. The Second Chancers?
The Second Chancers. All right, so we have our captains here. We're going to come up for the face-off. I have all the way from South Carolina. Family Feud buzzers. Here's how it's going to work. You're going to hit this buzzer without knocking it off. Judy, is it Judy? Judy, and no, Catherine, you're here. You're here. Yep. All right, so we're going to have a face-off. Here we go. You got to shake hands like the Family Feud. Here we go. Got the hand behind the back. They're ready to play the feud. Here's how this works. 100 experts surveyed. Top 6 answers are on the board. Can't play Family Feud without the Family Feud placard. Here we go. What are the top challenges that first-year students face when they come to college? Oh, it didn't buzz, but I think it was Catherine. She says time management. Show me managing time. Number 1 answer. All right. Here we go. Woo! Are you going to play or are you going to pass? They're going to play the feud. All right, here we go. Here we go. I got to get my placard now. All right. Jonathan, where are you from?
Burlington County.
How are things in Burlington? Anyone else from Burlington County? Yeah, give it up for Burlington County. You feeling the love, Jonathan?
Of course.
All right. You work with first-year students?
Sometimes.
Do those students have challenges?
Of course.
Of course they do. All right, what challenges might first-year students face coming to college?
I already said time management. Preparedness.
My judges are telling me that's too vague. I don't really have an earpiece. Show me preparedness. They're not letting you off the hook. Oh! All right. You said it was Matt? Yeah. Matt, where are you from?
From Morris County.
Morris County. I don't know where that is, but it sounds lovely.
Pretty nice.
All right, Matt. What are those challenges first-year students face?
Organization techniques.
Show me organization. Oh, no. Matt, that would have been answer number 7. Yep. Randy.
All right.
Where are you from?
Camden County College.
All right. What are your challenges first-year students face?
Transportation.
That's a good answer. That's a great answer. But it's, oh no, this is going too quickly. That would have been number 7 for sure. Absolutely was number 7 for real that time. All right, so Team E Street Band has a chance to steal. If they get one of these answers, they're going to go home with fabulous prizes. What do we think the answer is?
Money.
They said money. Show me the money. Yes! Dun-dun-dun-dun. All right. I'm going to give them their fabulous prizes in just a second, but I'm so happy that there are answers left on the board, because the thing that gives me the greatest joy about the Family Feud is when the audience reads the answers back as if it were the most obvious thing in the world, right? So read it back with that sort of tone. Here we go. Number 5. Yeah, that's a challenge, right? Okay. Number 4. Making friends. Number 3. Yeah, could have been a whole host of things there. And number 2. There we go. All right, let's give it up for the E Street Band. Show them what they've won. They're going home with University 101 tote bags. I can't believe it. Tell your friends all about it. Here we go. Thank you for playing the feud. Congratulations, second chancers. We appreciate it. No prizes for you except the pride. You did great. Did great. All right. Family Feud. Let's talk about Family Feud for a second here. Get your thoughts and reactions. What's your take on the Family Feud in general? We'll talk about game shows in a minute, but Family Feud in particular. Yes. Yes, so it gets everybody involved, and so sometimes it's tough. You only get 5 people, 10 people up there playing. You got to get the audience to participate. All right, what else does it do? How does this promote active learning? All right, so working together, getting up there, some camaraderie, some team spirit. Students love a little competition. What else does it do? Yeah.
It gets you to think because you only have a certain amount of time to answer the question.
Yeah. So how does an activity like this get you to think? You're framing your responses appropriately. Okay, they take your answer. You got to keep thinking. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, you're thinking about what other people say. You're sort of a little bit of empathy involved in there. But there's a great deal of critical thinking in a Family Feud type of recall of information, because it may not be recall. They may not know it. They have to speculate what that answer might be. We know that when a student has to come up with an answer on their own, the likelihood of them remembering it is far greater than if they just receive it, right? So I used to give my students, here's a list of 10 things that irritate your professors, right? I did a survey of all faculty at USC, and I said, what are your top pet peeves that students do, right? And I used to just give them the list, and we talk about it, and it was fine. But I tell you, I am not interested in being fine, right? We want our teachers to be exceptional, and they would never remember it. So we play it as Family Feud, top 6 things that irritate your professors, and they can't get to all of them, right? And so it's really an interesting, eye-opening experience. So number 1 answer, texting. Number 2 answer, they never get, which is zipping up the book bag before class is actually over. Like we've got 4 minutes left, folks. It's their pet peeve. Like, oh, yeah. And then, like, why do you think it irritates them? So the empathy piece is what leads to the behavior change versus, so it's like my daughter. I can't tell her, hey, stop being a jerk about this. I have to get her to think about how that behavior is impacting others. She has to come to that realization. Same thing is true for your students. So a game like this is a lot of fun. It's active learning, but it's a lot better than the alternative, which is you giving your students the answers. Okay, here we go. Y'all have fun with that one? Good. I did. That's good. All right, so here we go. We're going to do an activity now, also stolen from the Heath brothers, that is related to memory and learning. So what I'm going to ask you to do, you cannot write these down. I'm going to show you 20 letters. It's a very simple activity. And what I need you to do is remember those 20 letters in order. Okay? And I'm going to give you 20 seconds. 20 seconds to remember 20 letters in order. Go. Okay, 20 seconds is up. Without calling them out, how many of you all feel very confident that you can give me all 20 letters in order? All right, there's 100 people in the room. Not a single one of you feels confident in giving me 20 letters in order. Why? You do? Oh, okay, hang on. Before we get to... Yeah, you think you got this? Okay, all right. Before we get to what the answers may be, why is this activity difficult? All right, so the first thing is there's no context. What do you mean by that, Mary?
It's just a string of letters that could mean anything or nothing, and you got 20 seconds to figure it.
All right, so one is there's not a lot of time, and 2, there's no context. We know that learning requires context, some kind of association to hook the information together. Yes?
Instead of trying to identify some kind of pattern.
So you were looking for a pattern. So looking for a pattern to find meaning, or another word, association with that. Okay, so very difficult. 20 is a lot, right? 20 is a lot of things to remember. Our brains really can't do that. 10's about the upper limit. But let me do this again. Actually, what's your name? Fidel, how did you tackle this activity?
I found a pattern.
You found a pattern. What pattern did you find?
They're not actual words, but I sounded it out as if it was a word.
All right. So yep, you got something?
I remember all of them, but they're like, I'm blanking. Forget it.
She has some of them, looking for a pattern here. I'm going to give you the letters again in the same order. I'm not playing any games with you. The only thing that I'm going to do, you want to see if you got it right? I didn't want to put him on the spot. All right, Fidel, what do you think they are? He's writing them down over here, but that's all right.
J, F, K, F, B, I, N, A, T, O, U, P, S, N, A, S, A, I, and then I think the last one is R.
Wow, okay, that's pretty good. I mean, that's very, very good. But still, those letters don't seem to make a lot of sense, right? I'm going to give you the letters again. Same order. I'm only changing the spacing. And let's see if it makes more sense this time. Ready? Go. I'll give you 20 seconds now that you realize what's happening here to figure that one out. Okay. How many of y'all can give it back to me now? All right, give them back. Shout them out. JFK, FBI, NATO, UPS, IRS, and NASA. Sorry. So what's the difference? All right, we have two words that come over here, my C words. The first was chunking, right? So chunking is a very important technique in learning. If we're trying to remember 20 things, that's a lot harder than remembering 6 things, right? While we do our phone numbers as a 3-digit, then a 4-digit with a 3-digit area code. And then what did you mean by context? Yeah, so those things already have a predetermined meaning for you, right? We know what, for most of us, JFK, what FBI, what NATO, what those terms are. So now it's 6 constructs that maybe they don't fit together. You can find some kind of a way to make them fit together, but it's fewer things, and those things already have an association. Those letters mean something to us. So another? Yeah. Yeah. Okay, so let me give you a minute at your table to answer this question. So what? What do you do knowing that your students need context and they need to make associations? What will you do as a teacher? Go ahead. All right, what are some of the wisdom that you came up with for our so what? Yes, I knew I heard some great things at this table.
You have to make the theory into the context of what's going on. So getting to know some things about the students' lives from music and things like that, and really just connecting the theory with real life context for them that it means something relevant.
So connecting it to something that they already know. That could be existing information. It could be a prior experience, some kind of concrete experience that they've had. And you've got to use relevant examples for them to attach it to and not assume that they understand the context of that information. Other thoughts? Maybe one more table can share out their wisdom here? Yes, I felt this table as well.
Teaching math, teaching algebra and geometry, I try to bring in real-world applications. And I use the example as when you buy a house or you rent an apartment, that you want to carpet it, you want to paint it, you need to know how much and make sure that you're not being ripped off, but at the same time, it brings it down to something they understand.
Yeah. And I think one of the key things there that I heard was application. You're going to use that information, so having your students apply it. So having them connected to things that they already know or applying that information are 2 very important ways to make sure that the learning sticks. You want to shout it out real quick? Question. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Right. Yep. So how do we stay relevant? How do we stay connected to our diverse students? To me, that's the most fun thing about teaching, because I get older every year. And for some magical way, they stay the same age, right? I know we've all seen that happen. But by not necessarily being the sage on the stage and being the expert, by saying, I don't know things, and asking questions of your students and learning together will help you, I think, absolutely stay relevant. I think the bigger problem with this is a phenomenon known as the curse of knowledge, right? Which is forgetting what you already know and assuming that others know it. I'm going to make time for a quick demonstration of this. Who feels that they have a lot of rhythm? Maybe a drummer, somebody like a very musical person, feels confident in that ability. Anybody? Oh, come on. There's 100 people. Got to be somebody who feels like they have rhythm. Rhythm. You want to come up? You got rhythm? Come on up. All right, here we go. You got it. You got this. Give her a round of applause.
Jennifer.
All right, Jennifer may or may not have rhythm. It doesn't matter. I'm going to write down something real quick. All right, nope, I don't want you to sing it. So what Jennifer is going to do is she is going to tap the rhythm to a song that everybody in this room knows. What you're going to have to do, don't shout it out when you know it, is you're going to just think about what the song is. So what I want you to do is on this desk here, kind of rap it as hard as you can, and I'll keep my...
Wrap it with my hands like this.
Just like with your knuckles. Great. All right. So no, don't answer. All right. Now your question is, what % of this audience do you think is going to give you the correct answer?
5.
She's not very optimistic with this. What % of this audience do you think is going to give the correct answer? 20%, 50. Usually this person up here says about 50 to 75%. Jennifer's not very confident today, but that's okay. All right. Shout out what you think it is. How many of y'all think it's happy birthday? How many think it's something else? Why? We have your hand raised. What do you think it is? Oh, yeah, it's something else, but we don't know what it is. All right. How many of you all thought it was?
Say it. The Star Spangled Banner.
2. So 5% would be 5 people. Only we underestimated or we overestimated, even though it was low. Let's give Jennifer a round of applause for rapping out the Star Spangled Banner. All right, the so what of that activity, it makes sense up here. It was very clear in your head, right? It was like Star Spangled Banner is absolutely here, and it is coming out here. Right? So in my head, absolutely makes the most sense in the world. So teaching is a lot like that. It makes so much sense up here, we take for granted that it's not being received in that way. So I think that's the hardest part of this context and association business. Wasn't planning on that activity, but a little value added for you. You're welcome. All right, here we go. I have another memory challenge. Since you did so well with the first one, we're going to elevate this for the second one. Again, no writing down. You just have to listen. And this time, I'm going to give you 17 items. And I need you to remember these 17 items in order. Can you do this? You feel this? We're going to do this together as a team? We got this. All right, here we go. Individually, just listen, and then you'll remember. Here we go. 1/4-inch drill bit. Box of Wheaties. Red paint. Travel trailer. Travel trailer. Thunderbird. Jack Black. White football pants. Black stovetop hat. Beyonce. Bikini. Dictionary. Lighted candles. Dark sunglasses. Teacups. Red floppy hat. Parrot. And apple. 17 items. Fidel, you got them? No, not this time? All right. Raise your hand if you feel like, yep, got them. Got it locked down. Nobody. All right. Why was this difficult? Okay, a couple colors all over the place. How do they fit together? Too many. Yeah, when did you shut down? Roundabout Jack Black? Yeah. This is a tough one for many of the same reasons that the first one was tough. No association or context, too many, etc. But did you know that there are people who can do all sorts of amazing things with their memory? Are you familiar with the World Memory Championship? Anybody familiar with this? A couple people. There's a great book called, I think it's Walking with Einstein, and it's a guy who wrote a book about how to conquer the World Memory Championship. And he didn't view himself as any sort of extraordinary intellectual with extraordinary cognitive abilities. He believed that there was simply a technique to remembering these things and learning these things. And the way it would work, one of the challenges was that they would deal out a deck of playing cards that were shuffled up and give the participants 3 minutes to remember all 52 cards in order. Another one was they would give you 20 minutes to remember as many decks of cards as you possibly could. And the winner last year had memorized 14 decks of playing cards. Okay? So how do you possibly do that? Well, it's not, they're probably very bright people, right? There has to be something there. But there's a technique to it. And it's not a technique in the sense of gaming the system, it's how people learn. And people learn context and association. So what they would do is they would spend time before the event giving those playing cards a predetermined meaning, things from their own life. So one participant described that he would have things in his house, and the suits were different rooms in his house, the face cards were people in his life, and the numbered cards were some kind of object in his house. So once those things were ingrained of what they had a meaning for, then he would just tie those things together. So the 2 of hearts, so I have this person with this object went into that room, and make some kind of story, right? Stories are very important to tie things together. What else would have made this activity easier for you? Yes? Yeah. So making some kind of association. I like where you're going with that. Picturing Jack Black and Beyonce hanging out in a Thunderbird, of course. Hauling a travel trailer behind them, for sure. What else would have made this easier? Seeing it. Yeah. So we want to play to multiple senses, right? I just gave you one. You got to hear it. This time I'm going to give you some pictures. We're going to do it a second time. Some sort of repetition always helps with learning. And I'm going to give you some kind of context and association that ties all of this together. If I give you those 3 things, do you think you're going to be able to walk out of here remembering all 17 items? Oh. Now listen, I've already given you 2 of Dan's 3 C's for learning. The first C is context. The second C is connection. But the third C is care. You got to care. You got to want to do this. And so I need you to believe that every one of you can make this happen. Do you believe you guys can do this? Yes. In order. That's the whole point. In order, it matters. I believe you can do this. Here we go. All right. I have in my hand a 1/4-inch drill bit. And I drill into a box of Wheaties. Okay? But instead of Wheaties, red paint flows out of that box of Wheaties, and it flows all over the top of a travel trailer being pulled down the highway by a Thunderbird driven by Jack Black, who's wearing white football pants and a black stovetop hat. Seated next to him is Beyonce wearing a bikini. That was a very easy Google image search right there. 1 image for 2 things. And on her lap is a dictionary because she is writing a song and she's looking for new words. And on the corners of the dictionary are lighted candles. And you can see those candles reflected in her dark sunglasses. When we look at her dark sunglasses, we also notice that she's wearing teacups for earrings. Okay? Which brings our attention to her head. She's wearing a red floppy hat, on top of which sits a parrot eating an apple. 17 items connected. I know we can do this. Let's do this together. Ready? Read them out. Quarter-inch drill bit. Box of Wheaties. Red paint. Travel trailer. Thunderbird. Dictionary. Candles. Sunglasses. Teacup earrings. And floppy hat. Yes, give yourselves a round of applause. That was amazing. Well done. So why were you so successful even though you knew you couldn't do it? And you did it. There it is, 17 items. You saw it. You had repetition. I put the story together. So helping your students find ways to make associations. Now sometimes if we can't give them concrete experiences that match to their theoretical learning, or we can't connect, hey, this concept is like that concept, let's make some analogies of how they're similar. All great ways to make connections and associations. Sometimes we have to do this artificially, right? Teaching my daughter to play the guitar. How do I get her to remember the order of the strings? I told her once, Eddie ate dynamite, goodbye Eddie. And she remembers that forever, right? How do you remember the colors of the rainbow? Roy G. Biv. How do you remember the Great Lakes? Holmes, right? So sometimes we need to create these artificial mnemonic devices to help the association. This is a great activity to do with your students to show them ways that helping them be active in their learning. So not to necessarily make up an abstract script that doesn't make any sense, but the purpose of when they can make associations with things that they already know. So rather than rereading the material 3 times, stopping to say, what do I already know about this? How is this similar to something that I just learned or an experience that I had? Going through that mental process to make those connections. Okay. So, we're going to move on to the M&M activity. I know you're super excited, but I hate to disappoint you. There are no M&Ms. M&Ms are very heavy to travel with, but I found something very light. And what you'll notice is at the center of your table is a pack of buttons. So what I want everyone to do is just somebody take the rubber band off that pack and hand out a bag to each participant. Whatever's left over, just leave on the table. Ready to mingle, okay? So what I'm going to ask you to do, this is going to get very loud, so you'll have to wait my instructions in a minute, is I'm going to have you get up and just circulate somewhere else in the room, and I want you to find a person that you have never met before. And you're going to go introduce yourself. We have this a big room, so make sure you space out, use all the available room, but you're going to partner up like you're at a cocktail party having a conversation with this person. Once you do that, you've introduced yourself, then I'll bring the buzzer and I'll give you the instructions, okay? So go find a new friend with the bag. Take the bag with you. Very important. Thank you. Does everybody have a partner? We got one person who's partnerless. Come over and work with Christine here. Oh, she's on the way out. You can work with me. That's fine. Here we go. Hello. All right. Here's what you're going to do. I'm going to ask you a question. And you're going to discuss the question, but the question is going to have a numerical value. So, for example, oh, perfect. Thanks, Lana. This is a mock question. This is not the question you're going to answer, just for illustrative purposes only. So if I said, how many brothers and sisters do you have, right? So if I had one sister who hopefully is scoring me Bruce Springsteen tickets right now, I'd be pulling one of my beads or whatever those things are, buttons, thank you, and I'd be giving it to my partner. And then the partner would say, oh, I have 5 brothers and sisters. Then she would take 5 out and hand them to me. Okay, so we're physically going to exchange the beads. All right, so here's the question. How many institutions of higher learning have you either attended or worked at? If you need additional beads, they're floating around on tables. Buttons. Ready, go. Okay. Nope. All right. Has everybody exchanged beads or buttons? I'm going to get that word right. All right. Now I need you to go find somebody else who has a similar shirt as you do, hopefully somebody new, and want you to introduce yourself to that person. I'll give you 60 seconds to find a new partner. Cannot be the same person you just worked with. So you can do it 3 ways. You can figure that out. That'll make more sense later. All right, here we go. Now I'm gonna ask a different question this time. Same process, physically exchange the buttons. How many TV shows are in your must-see lineup or things that you have to watch, you have to binge on regularly? So how many TV shows are like, gotta watch it? Yep. Y'all finish? Y'all finish? Finish? All right, sounds like most folks are done. Make sure to finish that up, exchange those buttons. All right, we're gonna do this one more time. Go find a new friend, somebody who looks friendly that you want to know more about, and then await the new question. So go find a new partner, and I'll give you the new question. We have one person looking for a partner. You got a gentleman right back there, the book bag. It's a lot easier in a group of 20 to find those partners. Here we go. Last question. How many states have you visited in 2017? Define that any way you want. All right. Once you're done exchanging your buttons, go ahead and take your bag, seal it up, and head back to your original seat so we can process what we just did. All right, so what did we just do? The question is, what did we just do? All right, you learned about each other. What are some things you learned? Some travelers, favorite shows, where they've been. Okay, what else did we do? All right, you met some people that you have not met before. Okay, how do you feel now? Comfortable and more energized? Yeah. So she was saying it was cool because you found similarities. Remember that first question in the construct of sense of belonging is identifying people who have similar interests. So we may have fostered that, yes. You got to move a little. An hour into the presentation, you get to actually get up. If you didn't play Family Feud, getting up really is very important. So there's some movement. Yes. Absolutely. So making some small talk, getting to know that person a little bit more, making those connections, establishing bonds with others, extremely important for human beings, also first-year students. Okay, so this seems like it was some sort of community builder, get to know you kind of thing, and yes, it achieves that, but this activity was actually designed to do something else. And you have to do something else because you only get 50 minutes a week. If you're lucky like us on a 3-credit course, we get 2.5 hours a week, still not enough time. So all the things that you want to accomplish, if you're not double dipping in terms of your outcomes and goals, you're never going to get to the end with everything that you want to do. So you can't just be, this is this kind of activity and this is that type of activity. You need to find activities that hit multiple outcomes at one time. So we just hit the community building outcome, but we also hit a wellness related outcome. How many of you all have a blue button in your bag? Take a look in your bag, any shade of blue, raise them up tall so people can see. So what would you anticipate? That's about 75% of the audience? Is that about right? 80%? Something like that? Okay. Congratulations. Those of you with a blue button have a sexually transmitted infection. We did not see that one coming. Yeah. Sorry. Now, let's, your whole bag of blue. That's really bad. So let's extend this metaphor, if we will. So when we began this activity, 25% of you, 25 of those bags had a blue button. The rest did not. And now, after 3 encounters, that STI rate in this room went from 25% to 75%. So why 3? Because for the average college student on a residential campus, I get this may be different than your students, the average numbers of sexual encounters for those that are sexually active is 3 in their freshman year. So only half are sexually active, so we'll get that, but the other half are meeting lots of people. Say that as politely as I can. So the 3 sexual encounters, and that's why it was so important for you to exchange those buttons. See what happened there? So a lot of, I know, very, very gross, I apologize. And so this could lead into a conversation about sexual health. Now, for some years of my students, I just leave it at that because that may be enough. Like, wow, yeah, I probably need to be safe here, right? So, but it makes a very dramatic point for the students, and they got to learn all sorts of other cool things. So double dipping in terms of your outcomes. Thoughts, comments? Yes, I knew there'd be one. Do the really big blue buttons mean something? We can certainly extrapolate on that, but no. I do this with M&Ms usually, and the blue ones. I actually have invested in a set of marbles for my class, so then I can just wash the marbles and not have to, so I could be more economically responsible and environmentally sustainable at the same time. Other thoughts, comments, suggestions about that activity? Feeling okay? Yep, some hand sanitizer, clean that thing right up. Yeah. All right, so I've lost the clicker. I'll find it somewhere it went. So let's talk about another activity. We're not going to do this one. This is going to be very difficult to do in a room this large. But this is a great activity for fostering idea generation, brainstorming, and reflection. It's an activity called graffiti. How many of y'all are familiar with the activity called graffiti? One person. Okay. So the way this works is I would have 4 of those poster pages taped around the classroom. And each poster would have a different topic related to the subject matter. So for example, in one of my last classes that I'll have, how were you challenged this semester? How have you grown? What did you learn in this course? Those kind of things. And you would count off by 4. And let me just advise you also, if you can find a way to get people into groups without counting off, it could be, now sometimes you can do it and just have fun. Little rock, paper, scissors tournament is always a quick way. Best of 3, you get the winners on one side of the room, non-winners on the other side. You play again, you get them in corners. So you just built some energy. Took you 2 minutes to get people into 4 groups. Sometimes you want groups that are meaningful. They're not random groups of people. So on day 3 of my class, I talk about what are the biggest differences that you're seeing between high school and college. I want those groups to be diverse. So on our campus, 50% of our students come from out of state. Those students have a very different, we get a lot of you New Jersey students, so thank you for sending them our way. We appreciate it. But so I want to have them groups from places of where they are. So I have them line up by where they live or where they went to their last year of high school. It's a better question because a lot of folks move around. Where they spent their senior year of high school, the distance from Columbia to that town. And then I count them off, 1, 2, 3, 4. So now I've got groups from Columbia, Georgia, all the way up to New Jersey and Maryland. And then they get in groups and they discuss the difference between high school and college, and what they see is a very different kind of experience. So I'm hitting diversity, one of our outcomes. We're not really talking about it explicitly, but they're seeing differences in opportunity, differences in perspective by where people are from and where they grew up. So sometimes you'll want groups to be formed very intentionally. So there may be the case in this activity, it may not be, depending upon your topic. But then you would have a group start with 1, a group start with 2, and then they would write down their answers. You give them about 3 minutes, and then you ring a bell, and then they rotate. And then group 1 goes to group 2 goes to group 3, and so on, until you've done that all 4 times, and then group 1 ends up back where they started. Every group ends up back where they started. Now each group, as they get to the new paper, they see what's been written by those that came before them, and they can put a little check mark if they agree, or a little retweet symbol, or whatever they want to do. And eventually you're getting this really long list. And then I have each group go back when they get to the starting place, kind of report back out a summary of what they see so they can kind of see what happened after they left that idea. So this is a way to get people to brainstorm and reflect, but as a group. And I don't want this to be lost. The power of group reflection should not be understated. We often say, oh, reflection is a private activity. When you are 18 years old, when you are 22 years old, when you are 30 years old, reflection individually can be very difficult. So you ask a student, what's been challenging? I don't know, you know. Then somebody else writes, oh, it was really challenging me to figure out the balance of freedom and responsibility. Or it was really challenging for me to go and get the courage to go talk to one of my professors. And someone else sees that, like, oh yeah, that was challenging for me too. So the group reflection allows them to sort of piggyback on somebody else's and have self-realizations that they weren't able to pull out individually. So an activity like graffiti is a great way to get those out. I highly encourage you to put this one in your tool belt. Works all the time. All right, so let's do another one. We're going to play America's second favorite game show, Are You Smarter Than a First Year? All right, so here we go. We're going to play a little activity using Kahoot. Familiar with Kahoot? You need to be yes, but I'm sure if not, you're going to love this. And we're going to do this as a team at your table. So you're going to have one person pull out a cell phone, okay? And you're going to be the team captain. You're going to be responsible for recording the correct answers. And the first thing you'll need to do is think of a group name. So while I'm pulling it up, we need a table name because you'll have to put that into the Kahoot. All right, so only one player per table. We're going to record it. You're going to go to, on your web browser on your phone, you can also do it on your computer if you have that, kahoot.it. And you're going to enter in the PIN code that you see there, 508495. We have a player. And that's where you'll put in your team name. We are all in. Let's do this. Now, how many of you all have never played Kahoot before? Show of hands. Oh, you're going to love this. All right. So this works like Millionaire. You're going to get a question, and it's going to give you 4 possible correct answers, multiple choice. It is timed. You either have 20 or 30 seconds, and you'll see the clock counting down. Correct answers get you points, but fast correct answers get you more points. So the quicker you answer, the more points your team will earn. Incorrect answers will earn you no points, and the shame of everybody in the room. Okay, so we have 4 questions. The team that wins is going to win valuable prizes. Here we go again with, even better prizes in the bags. So it's going to give you a shape, though. So it's not going to give you an A, B, C, D. It's going to give you a shape and a color. So your table mates might call out, yellow, yellow. But you want to not too loud as to give everybody the correct answer. Or you can game the system and throw out incorrect answers and mess with people. Ready to play? Here we go. The drama is building. According to the National Success Clearinghouse, what percentage of full-time community college students persisted from their first year to their second year? Oh, see the sound effects, we're losing the sound effects. The answer was 68.6%. What are you saying to yourself? Number doesn't sound like my campus? Does sound like your campus? We often underestimate this. The nice thing about the Clearinghouse, are you familiar with their work? So the problem with calculating retention rates on our own campus, the reason why we make faulty policy decisions on a national level is because we're using faulty data. The number of students who persist and graduate is much higher than what's in the national narrative. And the reason is because we report this information as institutions. So my campus, we have an 87% retention rate, right? So the 13% we figure dropped out. No, may not be true. They may have transferred to Clemson. They may have transferred to Harvard. Your students may leave your institution. They may transfer others. When they transfer, they didn't graduate from your institution, and it didn't count. The National Clearinghouse addresses that because they will, if the institutions participate in the Clearinghouse, will track those students, because we don't have a national way to track students. We haven't decided to do that yet. But once they do that, the numbers are much higher. So for 4-year students, actually 90% of students will show up in college the second year. Yes? The correct answer should have been, well, it didn't count. Oh, it might have been right after the deadline because it's counting down to 20 seconds. All right, well, I can't speak to the accuracy of the, hope we're not going to have a riot here. We'll see what happens here. There's nobody got it. Let's go to the next question. Hopefully this one works for you. Nobody's winning. Okay, we'll just skip right past that. What is the national 6-year graduation rate for 4-year institutions? Ten seconds. Hey, here we go. Most of you got it right. 60%. 60%. All right, question 3. Oh, Friedman fans, 897. There we go. What percent of students feel very successful managing their time effectively, according to the Your First College Year survey? Yes, 8 of you got it right. Only 29%. Now, this is interesting because this is given at the end of their first year, 2 semesters in college, and then this instrument asks them, to what extent do you feel successful in managing your time? Now, the key word here is very successful. Let me ask you this. How many of you feel very successful in managing your time? Right? So it's probably 29%. So sometimes we have unrealistic expectations of what that looks like. I will tell you this. How many of y'all want to address time management with your students? If you're spending 1 class period on it, you're probably better off not doing it at all versus threading it throughout the entire semester. You need to think about your content as outcomes to be achieved, not topics to be covered. Because if you can help a student manage their time from then on forward in a 50-minute workshop, you are significantly underestimating your abilities, and you should quit your job right now, start a consulting firm, and you will make millions if you have that answer. It doesn't work by telling them how to do it. There's a process by getting them how to figure it out. Threading it throughout the semester will be a key. All right, last question. Let's see where we are. The professors, of course the professors, have taken over. Here we go. Last question for all the glory. According to the National Resource Center, what percent of 2-year schools offer a first-year seminar? There we go. 86% of 2-year schools across the country. So it started back in 1972 at the University of South Carolina, and now it's actually 90% of all colleges and universities across the country offer some form of first-year seminar. You were dying to know the winner. Congratulations to the professors. Professors have won a very hard to get University of South Carolina pencil. Now, don't forget, I didn't want to check bags through the airport. What a great tool. You can do so many things with this. You can record information forever. You can draw. You can erase your mistakes. It's a very handy tool that we underestimate in today's modern society. Congratulations to the professors. All right, so let's talk about Kahoot. Thoughts? Like it? Y'all like it? Use it. It's free. Your students will have used this. They use it in K-12. My daughters have been using this since 1st grade. So Kahoot's sort of old hat now when they come to college, but it's a great one. Now, imagine you play Kahoot on day 1, or not on day 1, but the first time you play Kahoot. How are your students feeling? Yeah, usually they're pretty excited. Like they're into it, particularly if they do it as a team, or they do it as individuals. They're very competitive. Second time you do it, they're like, oh yeah, this is fun. Third time you do it, really, I gotta put my phone, I gotta play Kahoot again, right? So things that are fun, you wanna do in moderation. That's why that variety of needing all of these strategies in your tool belt, because you can't over-rely on any one strategy. I wanna explain another activity. Again, this one would be very, very difficult to do in such a large group. This is a classic. It goes back to the original resource manual of University 101 when the course was created in 1972. Oh, wait, before I do that, let me just tell you, for those of you who may not have the technology in your classroom, you're like, oh, I can't do this, I don't have a smart board, or I don't have a projector, my students don't have smartphones, whatever the case may be, you can go old school with this. you got this little template, and if you email me, I'll send it to you. But you play the game the same way. You put your answers in there. What was the 6-year national graduation rate? You got a A, B, C, D. I make little A, B, C, D sheets of paper, glue it on a little stick. They can post their answers up in the air, and they are voting A, B, C, D. I love it that way because the kinetic piece, very, very easy, very low cost, and you don't have to worry about technology failing you. You can be ready to go and make your questions that way, and then you click on the correct answer and it, animate it to make it red, and there you go. So I can send you that template. I can also send you the Family Feud if you're interested in that as well. All right. So, oh, by the way, the retention rate, or the persistence rate, I told you was 60% nationally. For graduation rate, for New Jersey, it's 67%. So doing something a little bit better than the national average. All right, so back to that thing that's been tried and true for 45 years in University 101. It's called the social barometer. How many of you are familiar with the social barometer? Oh, this is a great one. Okay, you may have done it, but you may be calling it something different. This is a way for your students to express their thoughts about a topic or an idea or a question, but they do it physically and visually represented. So it has to be a question that it can be answered like a Likert scale of strongly agree to strongly disagree. So I would tell my students that side of the room represents strongly agree, and over by the windows represents strongly disagree. And you need to place yourself in a continuum of how you feel, of what you feel that answer might be. So a lot of times people might do this for, let's say, political issues. I don't necessarily recommend it. Doesn't fit with our learning outcomes. But maybe let's take one on alcohol. I think most college students on this campus drink. Okay? So then they would go strongly agree, strongly disagree. And then I would sort of, first I'd start with, okay, tell me, for those of you who strongly agreed, why do you think that? And then I would go to the strongly disagrees. And then I would go to the middle. You could probably answer a question in about 5 minutes of discussion. And so what I tell my students first is that this is we're not here to force our opinion on others. We're here to hear multiple opinions. Pull out a little John F. Kennedy quote, too often we enjoy the comfort of opinion without the discomfort of thought. Or a little Heraclitus who said, in the tension between the opposites, all things have their being, right? So here we are, the tension between the opposites, so maybe it's a social issue or a political issue. Somewhere in here, we might find the truth, but only if we listen and only if we try to hear other people's perspectives. So it's a very powerful activity for students to not only share their thoughts on things, but to hear others as well. So you're thinking about how can you use this? You can use this for any topic in your class. So I don't even use it for social or political issues anymore. It gets a little dicey in these. I do it for more dry topics like I always miss class, or I never miss class, or I always do my reading, or I never do my reading. And what's interesting is that the students who rarely do their reading or rarely go to class are sitting over here and looking over there and like, oh, Christine's over there, and strongly agree. Christine looks like she's doing well here in college. Maybe connecting the dots there between how they're doing and their behaviors. So a great way to physically get them up to represent their opinion or stance or reality. One caveat, I wouldn't ask them about behaviors that could be incriminating or embarrassing. So that's about as deep as I'll go with that. I won't say for the alcohol question, I drink 20 beers in a sitting, or I drink no beers, right? So it's like, that's why I asked the question about other people's behavior, like most college students on this campus drink, or I can effectively manage my time, somewhere along the continuums. How many of y'all, now that you've seen that explained, use a similar activity? How many think you might try that activity? Oh, thank you, I feel better. You got to try it. It works. It's been working for 45 years. I promise you it'll be gold. I also promise you it's very, very difficult to facilitate. So in the packet that we've shared with you on teaching and learning, there's some facilitation instructions. One thing for sure is setting those ground rules early. A second piece of advice is do a fake question first and tell them it's a fake question just so you can show the rules. Like chocolate ice cream is clearly the superior ice cream, right? And then just to show the mechanics of the activity, and then if you've forgotten to lay the ground rules and they start arguing about chocolate ice cream, you can then say, hey, let's talk about what the purpose of this activity is, and then you can restate those ground rules.
Out of curiosity, when you talked about the whole time management thing and you said, oh, Christine over there looks like she's doing pretty good, have you ever done a wraparound where you take the strongly disagree and ask them to come over and talk to the strongly agree so that they're paired up? I never thought of that. I just thought of it right now.
Brilliant. So I think that's similar to the idea of group formation, so the way I have my students line up from their distance in the hometown. So I do that with the academic strategies, and now I get them in groups, 1, 2, 3, 4, and now I've got groups of students that are academically on it, and those that are making decisions that they probably want to do differently, and then I had them do an activity, what are the top 5 things that you do to be successful in college, right? I could tell them those things, but they don't listen. But when they get in groups and there's different kinds of people in those groups, then the answers tend to be much more powerful. So what a great suggestion. Thank you. Okay, we're going to do one last big activity here. We have some time. And this is an activity called stepping in or crossing the line. Anybody familiar with that activity? So this is often used for diversity, cross-cultural competence, but we're going to do it for something different. And what I'm going to, maybe I'll get some help handing some packets out here. I'm going to give you one for each table. You're going to get a little green half sheet. It's going to have 5 questions related to teaching. What you're going to do not put your name on this. This will be anonymous. You will simply put a Y for yes or an N for no, if that statement is true for you. Your results will not be tied to you, so I encourage you to be as honest as possible. So I'll give you 2 minutes to really reflect and think about these questions, and then we'll start the activity in 2 minutes, 2 to 3 minutes, in a moment. Everybody had a chance to fill it out? All right, so what I'm going to ask you to do is put it face down, mix them up at your table. And then somebody in your group take that pile to another table and switch piles. Shuffle these up real good. Now everybody take a sheet. Everybody needs to have a sheet, but it shouldn't be theirs. What I'm going to ask you to do is you're going to stand up and you're going to find another table to group with, and you're going to make a circle. So, you want not enough distance to, enough to be close and feel like you can hear each other, but far enough they're not invading your personal space. So we'll make circles, probably have about 8, 7-ish teams here. So maybe these 2 tables get together and you make one big circle. These 2, I'll let you all figure that out. So you need to get in a circle with some other groups. All right. So now here's how this is going to work. I'm going to read the prompt. You're going to look at your piece of paper. If the answer is yes, you will just take a big step forward in the circle and just stand there for a second, okay? This will be a silent activity, so all you have to do is read your paper and step forward if the answer is true. I get butterflies on the first day of class. Okay, you can step back out. I often struggle to get my students to participate in class discussions. Okay, you can step back out. I worry about whether my students like me. Yeah. Okay, step back out. I think I'm a good teacher. Nice. All right, step back out. I feel prepared to teach a first-year seminar or student success course. Okay. Step back out. Last question. Bias creeps into my grading. Interesting. Yeah. Okay, step back out. Okay. So you have just completed an activity called crossing the line or stepping in. Now that you've seen this, how many of you all have done something similar? Many of you, right? Usually, again, this is from the diversity world, and there's questions about, You know, I have been a victim of harassment, or I often feel that I have to speak for my group, or things like that. Very eye-opening. But it's often done when the person has to represent his or her own viewpoint, which can be, now how would that activity have played differently for you if we were not mixing up the papers and it was not anonymous? Might be embarrassing. Absolutely. What else? Threatening. Would you have answered as honestly if I had said put your name on it? Some may or may not, right? So having it anonymous can be very powerful. So what does this activity do? What happens as a result of this activity? Yes. Yeah, so you're getting real answers because they're not afraid to step in, but you're seeing that, wow, other people feel the way that I do. How did that make you feel when something that you heard that you thought, I wonder, like, I think I'm a good teacher, or whether my students like me, which is a really honest question. I mean, if you really dig down, you have to see if that's anywhere in there. But how did that make you feel when you saw somebody else step in with your question, right? So sometimes that can be, again, affirming and validation, two very basic human needs. Was there, yes?
I think it had less impact because it wasn't my statement.
So he's suggesting it's less, so the reflection happens individually on the paper. The point of the stepping in is to see how many people, at this point, it's not about what you think, it's about seeing how many others agreed with you. So you want to, getting that chance to get affirmed or validated. Yes. Yeah, she said, depending on the question, it could help you not feel alone. So we use a survey by the Educational Advisory Board. It's a first-year retention survey. It has 37 questions. I feel like I belong at this institution. I know who my academic advisors are. I have at least one friend, whatever. I often feel alone. This is so I have taken those questions, and now we do it as a stepping in, because it's great for the university to know that so-and-so feels alone, and we can intervene and see if we can help. But it's more powerful when they know I am not the only one who feels alone. I am not the only one feeling overwhelmed. If you said, I feel alone, are they going to step in? Probably not, particularly when you're watching and you're thinking, okay, I have it on my sheet of paper, but nobody else is stepping in. They're sort of waiting to see if somebody else is going to step in. So that anonymity is really important so they can see how many other people feel that way. Other thoughts? Yes. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yes. So sometimes there is power in having students speak for their own situation. You need to do what you feel is right for you. But just to give you, no matter how you end up processing it, just the chance to see this kind of activity, any content, again, could be about time management. It could be something superficial about, college life, or it could be as deep as diversity conversation. So a great tool for your tool belt. So go ahead and have a seat. We're about to wrap up with lunch in just a minute. All right, the last thing I want to talk about is some best practices when it comes to assignments. So I promise you, we'll be adjourning promptly at 3 o'clock. But I want to take a little bit of this time. We're going to push lunch back by about 5 or 7 minutes. You'll still have plenty of time for lunch. But I want to make sure we get this part addressed. We've done a lot of work when it comes to, we at the University of South Carolina, when it comes to meaningful assignments. We know that if a student is going to complain about a first-year seminar, or they're going to complain about the student success course, most of those complaints are going to be related to the assignments that you have them doing. How many of you all appreciate and enjoy doing busy work? Step in. Nope. Okay. So then your students probably and rightfully feel the same way, right? So I always tell our instructors, the number one thing you need to be with your students is respectful, right? You want to respect their intelligence. You want to respect their time, right? And so that means being prepared and having a productive use of class time, which was one of those factors on engaging pedagogies. But it also means meaningful assignments. And so we've done a lot of literature reviews, a lot of interviews and focus groups with students about what makes an assignment meaningful. And a couple of things pop up. One is they have choice in the assignment. There's a menu of options. One of the things that we have at South Carolina is this academic success assignment menu. Student has to earn 50 points throughout the semester, and different behaviors carry different levels of points. So for example, if they take their paper to the writing center, they get 10 points. Not for my class, for any class. If they type their notes for a week in their biology class and they show them to me, or they make flashcards, any of those kind of behaviors you want them to engage in, if they do it for their other class and they show it to me, they'll get 10 points, but they get a menu of options. Which gets to the second thing, it has to be useful, right? They have to see the practical application of it. The third is that it cannot be and should not be simply a private transaction between you and the student. That is the kiss of death for busy work. Really interesting thing we found. We found one assignment on our campus. Students either said it was the most meaningful assignment all semester or it was the biggest waste of time. And it was the exact same assignment. The difference is how it was sold and how it was used. So you're thinking about assignments, the first thing you have to do is sell it. Why are you doing this? What are they going to get out of it? And the assignment was a time management activity where they would log their time for a week and then make a graph, right, showing where that time went. The students that said it was busy work, they did that, they turned it in, and their instructor gave them a check mark and said, good job, right? For the instructors that when the students said that it was meaningful, the instructor took the time to explain why they were doing it, what they were going to get out of it. Then they made a class graph on the back end, once everybody turned it in, so we could see the class average for these things and the range. They loved the range, like, wow, 0 to 30 hours of study time, or 50 to 80 hours of sleep. Like, who is sleeping 80 hours? And so then it was used for a conversation or an activity in class. So students did it, they come into class, and you're using it, and they're having a conversation about their answers. That led to them learning it, but also then to feeling like it was a valuable use of their time. So consider those factors. The last is that I always think about their final assignment. Is it something that they would want to keep? Is it something that they would want to show to others? If the answer is no, then it may not be as engaging as you would want it to be. So they write a traditional paper, they turn it in. Are they going to throw it away when they get the feedback? Good barometer of whether or not it's something that was meaningful enough. So my final exam is I have students make a video of their first semester in college and how they have changed, grown, struggled. There's a series of prompts, but they have a lot of different ways. They don't have to make a video. They could do a letter. They could do an interpretive dance. They could make a poster presentation. They could do a PowerPoint with pictures, anything they want to do. But I want to just kind of give you a sense of what these would look like. I will say with today's college students, I have to give them very little guidance on this because they grow up making these kind of things. You can do it on your phone pretty easily. But what I like about this opportunity for them to be creative, there's a lot of ways that they can reflect on and make meaning of their experience. But this gets to be public because we do a film festival as our final exam, and they show the videos. And what's cool is when you build that community in the right way, and they're friends and in each other's support group, then all the people that you saw in those pictures were people that were in her class, right? So it makes for a really cool, positive way to lead them on a kind of a big moment, if you will, with the film festival. But thoughts or questions about using film, because you could use you can use movies, but I wanted to also acknowledge this as an assignment, but also the use of film and film clips in your teaching. Or thoughts about her video? Yeah. Yeah, the power of pictures and of images, yeah. And so they do a lot of our students, and this goes back to the beginning of 101 as well, called a lifeline activity. So the first couple of weeks of class, they would create a lifeline of how they got to where they are. And they have to choose some images that would reflect that and give them like 2 to 3 minutes, and then they would present that to the class. That's the way for them to tell their story for everyone to get to know them. But they have to really think about that reflection of how did I get here and what do I want to get out of this experience, and very cool to do that publicly. I also wanted to say, yes. Yep. Mm-hmm. 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 Yeah. Yeah, so they're already kind of doing that, so capitalize on it. One more. Is it a graded assignment? Yes. So there's two components to this. The first is a letter to next year's first-year students that has the same prompts. So they write that as a letter. It's usually 4 or 5 pages-ish. That one gets graded more traditionally. This is harder to grade because, for me, it's almost like it's not a check plus check, check minus kind of thing, but in that mentality of it's harder to have nuance because it's their story and some, I don't want to grade their access or their abilities. It's not a production assignment, if you will, to see how slickly they can make a video or a PowerPoint, but I do grade them on the depth of their reflection. That's the primary criteria in that rubric. But the last thing I wanted to say, and the thing about the letter is nice because I use it to kick off next semester. And so I'll say, here's some collective wisdom from students who just finished their first semester. And then we talk about the letter. Hey, what have you heard about this before? Did you imagine that these students would struggle with this? What do you think it'll be like? And then I keep the letters, and when they graduate, for you 2 years, for us 4 years, I mail that letter back to them with a little note saying congratulations. I also get them together for a reunion, which is really cool. But Iva Sierra, all my students are very special to me, but she's particularly dear because remember we talked about that canary in the mine. And I talked about the student who was always happy and then one day not so much. For me, that was Iva Sierra. And I noticed it and I said, are you okay? She's like, not really. And I said, want to get coffee after class? She said, that'd be great. And I found out all the things that were happening in her life. Her father was very sick. And was hospitalized, and she felt the pressure to go back home, but she also felt like her mom's like, no, you can't come back home, you got to stay. She wasn't making friends. So, I just met with her regularly. She fell into the behaviors that I hoped she would, and she now is a very successful graduate student at American University. Very proud of the journey that she takes. I'm not taking credit for that intervention, but that intervention was very important in her life. So don't underestimate the impact that you will have on your students in a course like this. This is the best course to teach because it enables us to make the deepest and truest impact and to see it when students will come back and thank you for the role that you have played. So I enjoy teaching all my other courses, the graduate courses and upper division courses, but nothing gives me the joy like University 101 because of the relationships. I get to be in her picture too. One of the other human needs is wanting to be needed, right? As educators, I'm sure that's in your DNA as well, wanting to be helpful to somebody else. This course allows us to do that. So I appreciate your work with this, and I am really looking forward to talking this afternoon about making meaningful discussions in our class. So thank you for a great morning. Looking forward to a great afternoon. Let's go have some lunch.